Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today I'm going to be ranking my favorite healers so far based on all of my testing in PTR patch 10.2. I've tested every single healer. A lot of people wanted to know which healer is the most fun, and this is going to be my subjective video. Keep that in mind, guys. There is no right or wrong answer, and I really would like to know your opinions. Let me know in the comments below what your ranking would look like if only fun was the main consideration. I don't want this video to be too long like all my previous videos and things like that. If you enjoyed this content, like and subscribe, but we're gonna try and do this in the least amount of time possible because I want to get back to the shorter videos. But just before I'm gonna do this, S tier means the most fun healer, D means the least fun healer. So if someone's S tier, that means I'm really enjoying that playstyle. I'm gonna start off with Discipline Priest. I'm gonna place Discipline Priest in we're gonna place Discipline Priest in the good old A tier because I heard a lot of people complaining about Discipline Priest rework because they don't like the simplification. I enjoy the simplification. I think Discipline Priest need a simplification, especially when it comes to raiding content in terms of reducing or simplifying the ramps and things like that. I think the simplification of Discipline Priest is going to allow a lot of other players to come in, it's going to be a lot more approachable. I like the fact that Mind Blast is going to proc Schism. I like the fact that you can proc your Shadow Covenant through Shadow Fiend or Mind Bender, and all of a sudden the amount of buttons you need to press in order to start healing through damage is reduced. Do I like the fact that you're missing instant cast powered radiances? I really miss that. I feel like if you did have instant cast powered radiance, I actually would be a lot more inclined to put Discipline Priest in S tier. That's how big I think the tier set in terms of quality of life. Because right now you have more emphasis on smite, you have a simplified rotation. The fact that you have more emphasis on smite, some people might say you feel a little bit more rooted, because you really want to make use of your smite, especially during things like a Shadow Covenant windows because of your tier set and things like that. But overall, guys, I really resonate with healers that heal through damage, and the Discipline Priest is the OG healer that did that. I really enjoyed that aspect of healing because I think that's where a lot of the healers are heading over the last couple of expansions, and Discipline Priest for me is still very fun. I probably enjoy Discipline Priest more in Mythic Plus content because it's less scientific type of thing. This is when comparing it to raiding Discipline Priest, because in raids you still have that preemptive type of gameplay. You still want to anticipate damage, you want to apply atonements, and then press buttons in a certain order to maximize your throughput. But when compared to Mythic Plus, the gameplay can be viewed as a little bit more relaxed, and this is the reason why I really enjoy Discipline Priest in Mythic Plus content. I still resonate with things like shields. I like shields. I'm playing my Discipline Priest and Wrath of Lich King and things like that, and I enjoy applying shields. Of course, Discipline Priest in retail is not Wrath of Lich King Discipline Priest, where shielding is your main or the biggest portion of your overall healing. But Discipline Priest, the rework, again, rework. A lot of people I think are expecting bigger changes when Blizzard mentions rework. You have to keep your expectations kind of relatively low. You're not going to get a new class. Couple abilities have been merged, couple abilities have been removed, and you also got new talents like Ultimate Penitence. In terms of thematics and visual, it's absolutely insane. But in terms of the gameplay, sometimes it can be awkward to use, and I'm not 100% sold on this ability yet, but I need to try or play my priest a little bit more. Overall, at the base, in terms of what makes Discipline Priest, you still have that. You still do, again, healing through damage, shielding, and things like that. I still enjoy Discipline Priest a lot. It's going to be A tier. I definitely went through the honeymoon stage. Again, this happens all the time when a new class or class gets reworked. I get really hyped for it, then I play it, and then I realize, okay, it's good, but it still has some issues. Discipline Priest A tier for me. Now let's go and move on. Again, I'm going to move on to Holy Paladin here, and let's talk about Holy Paladin. I'm going to place Holy Paladin a little bit below Discipline Priest because I do think Holy Paladin, how do I say? No, first of all, this is not looking at the power of the healer, but every time I see nerfs to Holy Paladin, I get a little bit more sad because I still think the rework for Holy Paladin in patch 10.15 was really successful, because at the end of the day, Holy Paladin is one of those healers that has a really high APM, actions per minute. You're always clicking buttons. Your abilities, half of your abilities can be used for healing and damage, which is just amazing because especially if you're doing Mythic Plus content, you're always constantly deciding, do I want to use Divine Toll to apply glimmers on enemies? Do I want to use Divine Toll to apply glimmer on allies? How do I want, or for example, I don't want glimmers on enemies anymore. I want glimmers on allies. Let's use Daybreak to reset it. And I think this kind of rationale is really interesting. In raids, it's a little bit more structured in terms of how you want to use your cooldowns, in what order, and in order to maximize your glimmers and things like that. In Mythic Plus, it's a lot more open. I'm not really sold about the fact that they're nerfing mana, they're trying to make mana as a resource, and for Holy Paladins, maybe in raid situations there'll be some new talent builds emerging. Maybe, for example, if you're running out of mana or something like that, you might be more inclined about casting Flash of Light with Infusion of Light proc. And that kind of takes away from the melee gameplay for me. So again, the loss of the tier set or the previous tier set kind of takes away the power from things like Holy Prism or Light's Hammer and things like that. They did buff Holy Prism to try to make it feel a little bit more impactful. At the end of the day, Holy Paladin is one of those healers where you do have high actions per minute and you're either gonna love it or hate it. You have a lot of decision making to do in terms of how you're going to DPS or heal, because a lot of your abilities can do both, and I think that's really fun. And even though you're a melee healer, you can still step out of melee, and I still enjoy Holy Paladin. That's going to be in B tier for me. And now let's go to some of the juicer healers. Now it's going to be Mistweaver Monk. Honestly, Mistweaver Monk for me is going to be S tier. I really enjoyed the changes that are happening to Mistweaver Monk, especially when it comes to Mythic Plus content. I really resonated with that spin to win type of gameplay in Mythic Plus, because depending on how many mobs you have, you can go in, press Phalanx Stomp and spinning Crane Kick, and you can actually feel the health bars going up and you're doing damage and healing at the same time. On top of the fact that they buffed a lot of your damage abilities very recently. Punching and doing your damage, especially with something like Ancient Teachings, you can see the health bars move up, and I think that is important because you're much more kind of engaged in that playstyle. Again, we're talking about Mythic Plus here because Phalanx Stomp is very popular playstyle in Mythic Plus. I think Mistweaver Monk might have the possibility to have multiple gameplays when it comes to Mythic Plus content, Phalanx Stomp, and in raids. We'll have to see if you're still going to be playing that Yulon, that Clouded Focus build, which is somewhat different in terms of how you're doing your 1-minute ramps. And that might be viewed as a positive for people who like to have a different kind of playstyle. For example, if they pick this class 1 spec, could have multiple different builds in Mythic Plus and raids, and you almost feel like you're playing 2 different specs. For some people who really enjoy that Phalanx Stomp build, they might be a little bit disappointed if the Phalanx Stomp build does not become meta in raids. But I don't think that Yulon Clouded Focus build is all that damaging or unfun. I still have I still have a decent time. So overall, Mistweaver Monk, the most fun for me in terms of Phalanx Stomp, in terms of Mythic Plus, in terms of having those instant cast abilities, Vivacious Vivification, Instant Vivify. I think your tier set is relatively fun to optimize. Again, I think there's a lot of good things happening to Mistweaver Monk, and it's important to acknowledge that any class or spec that provides a lot of mobility, and Monk has a lot of mobility, that's always viewed as a big plus in my books, because getting away from bad mechanics in a fast way, it's always going to be viewed as a nice addition to the class. There is a shortage of monks in this game right now, and I think a lot of people are kind of like, should I try out Mistweaver Monk? If you never played Mistweaver Monk, I think this is the time to try it out. I think this is the season for Mistweaver Monk, and I can guarantee you, for a lot of people out there, you're going to be like, wow, I never expected to have this much fun. Especially if you're someone who likes melee playstyle with a Phalanx Stomp build. I think that is one of the peak melee gameplays out there. I wish there was kind of like a range increase when you're playing that melee build, when you're playing that Ancient Teachings or Phalanx Stomp and things like that, because you're so reliant on melee. That can sometimes feel really painful if you cannot be in melee. That's the only gripe right now. If you had some kind of range increase or melee range increase, that would be the perfect healer. And now let's move on to Preservation Evoker. And I'm going to place Preservation Evoker somewhere close in B tier, somewhere close to Holy Paladin right now. I do think Preservation Evoker, in terms of pure numbers and everything, is doing really well in patch 10.2. I think in terms of providing damage, again, I'm talking about damage and things like that for healers. If you don't really have to focus too much on damage as a healer. A lot of the times people focus too much on it, but if you're trying to deal damage as a healer and that aspect is important to you, Preservation Evoker DPS rotation is arguably one of the easiest out there, and you can still provide a ton of DPS with relatively low effort. And that might appeal to you, that might not appeal to you. You might be looking at this and like, I kind of want a bit more intricate rotation. But at the end of the day, really easy DPS rotation. It's all about the empowered abilities and how you use them. There's, again, emphasis on the tier set bonus, emphasis on how you use your empowered abilities. You're getting essence bursts. You can decide how to use those essence bursts. I like that. But at the end of the day, I still think there's going to be moments where you're like, especially in Mythic Plus environment, where your range limitations are going to be absolutely pain in the butt. The fact that you might be playing with someone like 3 range DPS and they're like all over the place and you're trying to hit them with your Dream Breath, trying to heal them, that can really make you angry. Or sometimes that might not be an issue at all because everyone kind of stacks. And I think that can be annoying depending on the composition that you're playing with. And there is something about Living Flame, something about hard casting Living Flame as a filler ability to heal and things like that just feels really kind of clunky. I miss the days of instant cast Living Flames back in Season 1 and things like that. If they could bring that back in some shape or form, I actually think Preservation Evoker would really benefit from that, because hard casting Living Flames to heal people, it just doesn't feel right. I don't even know how to describe this. Let me know if you're feeling or you feel in a similar way. Let's move on to Restoration Shaman, and I'm gonna be placing Restoration Shaman somewhere like in the B tier. I think right next to or close to Holy Paladin. Again, I don't hate any healers out there, but Resto Shaman, I'm placing it close to Holy Paladin, but Resto Shaman is so different when you compare it to Holy Paladin. Holy Paladin, high actions per minute, high APM. Resto Shaman is one of those healers that's kind of opposite. You have a lot of these longer cast times, your APM is lower. It's almost like a healer that's more suited towards boomers like myself. I like the fact that Resto Shamans, and again, Shamans in general, have a lot of these utility items that they can spec into, situational utility items. But at the same time, you can also ask yourself, how am I going to fit this in terms of keybinds? So it really depends on which content you're doing. Again, it is one of those kind of like a slower healers I tried out, and I like the chain heal build, which I kind of reworked in the previous patches. I like builds that don't use chain heal as well. I like things like Acid Rain in terms of providing damage and healing at the same time. It adds depth to the class, because all of a sudden you're more inclined about using Healing Rain in Mythic Plus content, which used to be one of those things where Blizzard had a really hard time of. Your Mythic Plus rotation used to be a very much simplified version of what you would cast in raids. That used to be a thing for a really long time, and I think Blizzard tried to fix that in terms of, hey, you're more inclined about using Healing Rain in Mythic Plus, you're more inclined about using Chain Heal in Mythic Plus, depending on which build you're running. So I like the Shaman playstyle. I'm not a huge fan of the tier set. Again, that's my personal opinion. I think they could have reworked it, made it more interesting, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's all about Cloudburst Totem for me. I love Cloudburst Totem, and it honestly adds a very much needed complexity to this class, because if you don't run Cloudburst Totem, the class is going to be a lot more simplified, which is not a bad thing if you're looking for that. For me, I like Cloudburst. I like min-maxing Cloudburst with your other abilities, your other talents and things like that, and I enjoy that kind of gameplay. And this is why Resto Shaman is in B tier for me, or in high B tier. If Resto Shaman didn't have Cloudburst Totem, it's probably going to be a little bit lower, but again, this is subjective. This is my personal opinion. And now let's move on to Restoration Druid, and Restoration Druid for me is probably going to be S tier, and again, this is going to be subjective. There's going to be a lot of people who might like this or might not enjoy this, because Restoration Druid is a hot healer, healing over time and things like that. You're either gonna like that or you're going to hate that. I've enjoyed this hot playstyle. I enjoy applying bleeds, I enjoy applying dots and things like that. We'll have to see if Feral is going to be something that people are going to be playing or optimizing, something like Mythic Plus content, but I like all of that combination. I really enjoy that. And this patch 10.2 and the previous patch 10.17 is all about Grove Guardians, because Blizzard introduced Grove Guardians in patch 10.17, and they're building on top of this in 10.2. There's a lot of talents that interact with Grove Guardians. Your 2 set interacts with Grove Guardians. There's a lot of emphasis on this. A lot of people tend to think that because of this, Resto Druid is a lot more reactive. At the end of the day, you're still a proactive healer. You want to have HOTS on people before the damage comes out. Your Grove Guardian, in order to optimize their healing, you want HOTS on the party already. So you still have that proactive gameplay, but on top of that, you have Grove Guardians to help you. I like having a forest at my disposal. I resonate with Grove Guardians. A lot of people might not like the passive healing. A lot of people might not like where Blizzard is going with Grove Guardians. I like this. I like the fact that they're removing Circle Life and Death and introducing something like Liveliness, which honestly, Liveliness does not reduce the duration of your HOTS or dots, and therefore it doesn't push you into that more heavy GCD gameplay. I know a lot of people are going to hate the fact that Flourish was nerfed. I don't think it's a deal breaker for me, because I just like the whole complete package of Resto Druid and what's happening in 10.2 with Grove Guardians and the emphasis on Grove Guardians. Honestly, for me, it's going to be an S tier healer. And now the last healer is going to be Holy Priest, and I probably would place it somewhere in low B tier, but I probably just gonna go and place it in C tier. Now, I don't hate Holy Priest, and actually main Holy Priest for a little bit in Shadowlands and things like that, so I like what it brings. I like the fact that it's more of a classic type of healer. It's more about click and heal type of thing. It's very reactive. I'm not saying that you don't have to invest a lot of time in order to master this class, but at the end of the day, it's one of those healers where I feel like if you haven't played retail as a player and you're like, I'm kind of looking to try retail for the first time, I'm a healer, I want to try a healer, I would tell you instantly, go and play Holy Priest, because that's probably more of that classic healing playstyle. And that's important for the game. You need to have a healer that still kind of has that classic healing mentality. It's not all about that healing through damage. It still has a lot of DPS kind of talents that you can pick up in terms of optimizing your DPS. But at the end of the day, it's still more of that click and heal type of gameplay. It's a lot more simplistic, and I think that's going to appeal to a lot of players out there. But for me personally, it's lacking something in terms of having a little bit more complexity to keep me playing, to keep me interested, to keep me excited. There's so many players who play Holy Priest. Holy Priest community is massive, and I think they're all going to downvote me here. They're all going to hate on this video because I didn't place them higher. But for me, it's a little bit bland, it's a little bit boring. I had terrible time with Flash Concentration back in Shadowland times because Flash Concentration was so churey. It felt like a chore. I think it improved in Dragonflight. I think Lightweaver is a lot better version of that. So Holy Priest, probably low B tier, something along C tier. Not the most favorite healer, not the most exciting healer for me, but again, this is a subjective list. This is a personal list. You are more than allowed to agree or disagree with this list. Let me know how I feel about my ranking in terms of the most fun healers coming into patch 10.2. I'm having a blast with Mistweaver Monk. And honestly, in my opinion, this season might actually be Mistweaver Monk's season. Mistweaver received so many incremental buffs throughout the 10.2 PTR that honestly, playing my favorite form of Mistweaver Monk, which is the Feline Stomp build in Mythic Plus, you can actually feel your damaging abilities moving bars. I think if you enjoy the possibility of playing multiple different builds, both in Mythic Plus and Raids, if you enjoy that Feline, again, for me, the most fun version of Mistweaver Monk is that Feline Stomp build in Mythic Plus, doing that DPS and converting it to healing. Honestly, one of the most fun I've had in a really long time. I'm having a blast with the Resto Druid Grove Guardians. I like where they're going with Grove Guardians. You might not agree with this, but I like this. 10.2 is all about Grove Guardians. So if you like Grove Guardians, Resto Druid in 10.2 is going to be something that you might enjoy. Discipline Priest, I think the honeymoon stage is kind of a little bit wearing down at the moment. I still like the simplification. I think Discipline Priest need a simplification, especially in raid content. I think the fact that it's going to be a lot more approachable by new players, that's only a good thing. And I think Blizzard kind of, over the course of 10.2, Blizzard tried to simplify a lot of the healing classes, like in terms of nerfing some talents, nerfing some spells and things like that. There's definitely evidence of that. Holy Paladin, I think APM in terms of high actions per minute, if you like that, I think it's really interesting. I think the fact that you have ways of spreading glimmers and ways of resetting glimmers with Daybreak. I think the interaction of Divine Toll and Daybreak is what makes Holy Paladin. I do miss, or I'm not a huge fan of hard casting. If Holy Paladin is going to be heading into that more hard casting gameplay, especially in raids, not a huge fan of that. And I do miss the previous tier set in terms of making a couple of your talents more powerful. So that's a bit of, again, positives and negatives and things like that. Resto Shaman, low APM healer, longer cast type of thing. I like the chain heal build. I like the build that doesn't use chain heal. I like Cloudburst the most. Cloudburst Totem makes, again, for me, it makes Restoration Shaman. Without Cloudburst Totem, Resto Shaman would fall a bit, but I still really enjoyed Restoration Shaman. I think I would have liked to see a tier set that provides a more fun gameplay to Restoration Shaman, but I think it's a bit too late to have a rework of a tier set. Let me know how you feel about Resto Shaman tier set. Let me know if you enjoyed this. And Preservation Evoker, I think it's a fun healer. I think the simplification of, or the simple DPS rotation can appeal to a lot of people. I like the Stasis build. At the end of the day, Preservation Evoker most likely will have multiple builds when it comes to Mythic Plus content and when it comes to raids. In raids, a lot of people are playing the Emerald Blossoms build. In Mythic Plus, you might be playing something a little bit different. There is a lot of variety in terms of Preservation Evoker, but if you really hate that range limitations, that can honestly be an absolute deal breaker. And I would really like a talent that would allow you to cast more instant cast Living Flames like in Season 1, because honestly, once I got the taste of instant cast Living Flames, I just find it so clunky to cast Living Flames in order to heal and things like that. I don't know how to explain this. Do people feel like me in terms of hard casting Living Flames to heal people and things like that? Does it feel clunky to you? Let me know. Maybe it's only me. Maybe it's only me. And in terms of Holy Priest, again, I don't fully resonate with the gameplay of Holy Priest because I do think it's a bit more of that classic healer playstyle. But I think it's very important that Blizzard has this healer in order to bridge the gap for a lot of new players returning to the game and things like that. And Holy Priest has a huge community. And I think a lot of people resonate with Holy Priest. I personally don't, but I know Holy Priest is very, very popular. I still believe you have to invest a lot of time in order to min-max every single healer. And the same thing goes for Holy Priest, but I kind of wish there was something else in order to provide a bit more complexity. Again, these are my personal opinions. This is very, very subjective. Feel free to agree or disagree. Let me know what your list of the most fun healers would look like. Again, no right or wrong answers. Let me know, and I'll see you in my next video.